So what I'm doing is a little woodworking trick here. I want to put this board to use it for a stop. But I don't want it to be permanently there. So what you do is you use a little painter's tape. And a little super glue. CA glue.
And the activator?
You put a little activator on that piece of tape. You got super glue all over this tape. And when you stick them up there, now it's stuck. And that'll work, make me a nice repeatable stop there. So what we've done is set up for cutting the top board in on the high frame. So it's supposed to be 3/8 of an inch up and 1 inch and 1/16. So I'm doing it in 2 cuts here. If you're new to woodworking, don't put it here and run it by here. If you got it in contact here and here, it can cause it to kick and hurt you. So you can use the miter gauge here, or you can slide across the fence. You don't want to use both at the same time. So what I'm doing here is just using the fence as a stop. So that if I run this here, I can come right here every time and I don't have it in contact over here. So you want to be careful when you're doing things. If you're new to woodworking, you haven't done that with a dado blade. Now, if you're trying to make these and you don't have a dado set up, you can run it on your regular table saw with the regular single blade there and make just one cut. Then you can turn it up on a like you would cut a tendon and cut it like this. But if you do, you really need something like a tenon jig to run it against. I've got one that I can use on my other saw, kind of like this, and you can clamp it. But doing a whole lot of these, and I don't want to clamp every one, and I have a dado stack, so I do it with the dado. It's a lot faster for me to do it like this. Okay, we're found ourselves needing some more laying frames, and this is the part that everybody hates, and it's the making the sidebars, which is 3/8 inch thick by 1.5 inches. So I just cut them off of 2x10s, 2x6, any kind of scraps I have. Then you want to come back and put a relief on each one, so that you have bee space in here for the bees to go between. If you make that too wide, the bees will build between it. And if it's not wide enough, the bees can't go through there. So it kind of needs to be there. Gene over in Enjoy Beekeeping, he just cuts 1-inch bars. But the trick with that is you don't have the right spacing between your frames up here at the top. You got to be very careful that your frames don't get in there and swing a little bit, close off your bee space. So I like to do it kind of like what Dr. Leo recommended, and leave the 3/8 of an inch, or the space in here. You take 1/4 inch off of each side. We made a video, the first one on making frames, I just did this with a cheap router table and a small router with a, I think maybe a 1/2 or 3/4 inch bit. So while we were doing woodworking projects a while back, I decided to make a router table. So I bought a router lift mechanism. So on this, there's a lock here, and then put this in here and it cranks the router up and down. It's mounted upside down under the bottom. I bought this fence that has a lot of adjustability into it, and I'm able to set my bit here. I'm using a 1-inch bit, which is a lot bigger, makes it a little bit easier taking a 1/4 inch off. And I've offset this side of the fence from this side, so it's a 1/4 inch offset on this side of the fence. That way, I put some feather boards up here to hold my work down, so it's not trying to kick up. It gets here, and I probably should be taking 1/8 of an inch off and doing each side twice, but I'm taking a 1/4 inch off as it comes by the router, and then it runs down this side, and this keeps this side from kicking up and hitting my stop block. So it's made the job of making these a whole lot easier. Now I am getting tear out right here, but it don't matter. Shirley's going along and taking a razor knife and just cleaning that up. We could hit it on the edge of the belt sander or something like that if we wanted to, but it really don't matter. The bees do not care what that looks like. The main thing is going to fit on the top bar here and give us down to our 1-inch bottom bar across here. So this is how we're making them now. It's a whole lot more pleasant. I've got it hooked to a vacuum. I'm pulling vacuum off the bottom, and off of here it goes down. I've got a cheap Cyclone, got it Harbor Freight, into a Harbor Freight bucket, into a Harbor Freight vacuum cleaner over there.
So that's our dust collection system.
And that's my dust collection. And even working out here is so much better outside, pulling all them chips away. If you can see on the video, it's pulling everything down and out the back. So there is a vacuum hooked to the bottom here. This is just a box here, and the router's mounted upside down in there. It has a vacuum line coming out the bottom into a Y. So it's made it a lot more pleasant doing this.
And you're not wearing as much man glitter.
No, I don't have near as much on me.
We're continuing to work on our frame parts on our top bars. I'm drilling the holes today, and you can see this is one that's already done. It gets 4 holes in the top so that we can wire the frames. After we get the holes drilled, we'll put a staple on one side so that keeps the wire from cutting down into the wood. So this is one that we've already done. I went ahead and drilled the holes in this one to test out our jig, and I marked the holes with a Sharpie so they'd be easier for you to see. The holes are not that big. We have about 100 of these new top bars to drill the holes in today, and so we broke out the jig that Roy made for me the last time we did this. I'm putting staples in our top bars right by the holes where the wires are going to go. So the wires will loop over these staples, and the staples will keep the wires from cutting into the wood. So it should help to preserve the integrity of the top bars and keep our comb secure in the frame.
You want me to tell you a secret?
What?
If you was to put that on top of the frame where the wire is going to be, it'd be really nice.
Now that I have these turned the right way, this is the top bar of the frame, and I'm putting a staple in beside each of the holes. The wire's going to come through the holes, wrap over the staple, and then go back down. And that should keep the wire from cutting into the wood on the frame. So my job today is making frames. We've had a very good swarm season this year, and we have caught a bunch of swarms. We've caught 8 or 9 swarms so far, and so that means we need more housing for our bees. We did build 3 more insulated hives toward the end of last winter, and anyway, we needed more frames. So as we've been doing woodworking projects, every little piece of scrap that we have, we've been saving, and depending on how long the scrap piece of wood is, depends on if it's a bottom bar or a top bar or one of the side pieces of the frame. I'm using the jig that Roy made me last year. It's from the plans on Dr. Leah's website, horizontalhive.com. Roy did make a modification, which I think was a big improvement. He put it on a Lazy Susan, so I can turn it around. It makes it a little quicker. And he also had set me up a little workstation, so I have bins with the different parts that I'm using for the frames in the bins. So my job today has been just to assemble. And they're glued together and they're stapled. So each frame gets, of course, an end bar, bottom bar, 2 end pieces, and then a top bar. So like I said, they're glued and then they're stapled together. I'm using 1-inch staples. Here we go. And it's going pretty quickly, but I have a lot to do. We'll let these sit for a couple of days to make sure the glue is dried, and then I will be working on my least favorite part of the whole assembly process, and that's putting the wire in. That's very tedious and time consuming. So that's the next step after this. Today I'm working on my least favorite part of the frame assembly process, and that's putting the wire in the frames. The wire is to help to hold the comb in the frame since we're using foundationless frames, and it also will keep us from damaging the comb in the extraction process. We did purchase an extractor, so hopefully we're going to get honey this year and be able to use the extractor to get it out. So the way the wire is actually attached to the frame are by these two little nails that are hammered into the frame, and Roy helped me out by pre-drilling these holes and starting the nails in. We're using Southern Yellow Pine for our frame parts, and it's very easy to split even using these really small nails for this, so it works a lot better to have them pre-drilled. And so Roy's done that for me, and these are all ready to go. So, and we're using the same frame wiring jig that we used last year. We downloaded the plans for free from horizontalhive.com for our wiring jig. So you just put your assembled frame into the jig, and just feed your wire through the holes, up and down, and around the spools. And these are going through the holes that we had already drilled in the top bars and the bottom bars on the frame parts. We did that before we put them together. And you can see why I don't like doing this. It's very time consuming. Each one takes quite a bit of effort here. So here's where the nails come in. When you get over here to the end of the frame, the side of the frame with your wire, you just take the wire and wrap it around the nail 3 times. And then you get your hammer and you finish driving the nail in. And then when you just wiggle the wire, it'll actually break off right at the nail head, and it won't leave a piece protruding to stick in you later. So once you get the wire attached, then you have to tighten it up. And this is the part I don't like. So just kind of pull back on it and release it from the spools, and then rewind the wire onto the spool that it came off of. And as you go along, you have to kind of keep pulling on it to make sure that it gets tight all the way across. You'll see I'm wearing a glove on my right hand for this because it just tears my fingers up. Alright, and then once you get to the other side, you take your wire and you wrap it around the nail on the other side of the frame 3 times, and then you hammer that nail in. And again, you just wiggle the wire back and forth, and it'll break off right at the nail head, and really it will not leave even a little bit of the wire sticking up to poke you later. Alright, so that's one done. That's pretty tight. So I think I only have about, I don't know, maybe 75 or 80 left to do. So it's going to be a long day.